as I got on with this series, I realised I wasn't really explaining what I was trying to explain, or what my process really is, why I'm doing these videos for everybody. I sort of jump into things, and I think that you can all mind read and have an awareness of my line of thought, which of course you can't have, so my apologies. What I didn't explain at the beginning of this series is what is driving me to explore the attributes and possibilities of the acrylic mediums. So these, and many other videos before, for example the abstracts and the mumigami papers that have been painted in acrylic, the gel plate printing and the mark making, all these videos experiment and play with acrylic's potential, its attributes, and the way that these respond to the substrates, methods and the process used. So in this video I look at the colour in the hum of the Undercoat painting and in its use to create perspective. We also look at the variety of mark making, the process of leaving just enough information and stimulus to allow the brain to respond and to interpret the image rather than explicit description, which obviously doesn't allow the imagination free rein to really explore and extend what you're seeing. So in this video we're looking at a variety of ways of applying the paint to create a representational image that does leave a lot to the imagination, that is making marks and things that are left open for interpretation. They're not explicit, they merely imply. So initially a panoramic canvas board is painted in the Undercoat, and you saw the light blue to one side and the yellow on the other, and the dark reds and purples to the base. And while this is still wet, I go in with a silicone brush, a silicone headed brush, and take out the tree forms, and I'm looking to get some sort of woodland. And what happens is the lovely brush, the silicone brush, bends and twists in its own way, so it's really perfect for making twigs. So once that's dry, the whole background with the marks going through for the trees, I then start painting in the negatives, leaving some of the edges still showing the Undercoat colour, because it's so interesting. It sort of adds to the dimension of the painting, and is really worth exploring. So you might get quite precise lines, but they are edged with the colours beneath it. And also when you put on the white over the top of it to lighten the sky, to make it recede, there's this really lovely hum of the colours that are underneath it. And I'm going to do a series of videos showing all the different types of colours you can go get underneath the white to make really interesting skies. What I'm doing is painting in the negatives in between the marks that I made, and I then get a blending brush and blend it over, because all I really want is the evidence of those lovely twisty lines left, so that I can follow them at a future point in the process. You can see I'm not particularly careful. I do it quite quickly and almost erratically. I suppose I've done enough so that I know what I'm doing. So you can both blend and do the negatives, and you just get these beautiful edges. I think there I've taken out the very sharp delineation, which I didn't like, between the blue and the yellow, which had gone a bit green. And again, the white that you add doesn't have to be consistent. It's quite nice when it's sort of more mottled, like clouds in the sky. This next bit here is marking in some sort of suggestion of a background of the recession of some fields going into the distance. So you can do perspective. So you can do perspective both using colour and line. So those lines taking you off in a diagonal form a perspective. They allow your eye to travel to the back of the image and just suggest that there is a depth to the image. The green I've added with a palette knife, and oh, it's such good fun. You just scrape it on, and as you can see, there's quite a number of different colours on the palette knife. Oh, it's not a clean colour. It's a mixture of greens that I've got on the palettes and blues, and I'm building up the undergrowth of a wood that's going to be the Bluebell woods. So again, you're thinking about perspective. You want the more quiet colour, the lesser hued colours towards the background, and then the stronger hues towards the foreground, or the more vibrant ones towards the foreground. You want the blues, use blues towards the background, and then allow the reds and the rich warm colours to come in to the foreground, because it just really helps with perspective and gives you depth. So you scrape on these lovely colours, leaving the marks between, and you can see I particularly leave the reds, the base of the trees, and it just adds to the shadows and gives your eye a lovely sort of shock. Where's the red come from? But you totally accept it. And then I take a stick and mark in a few fronds to suggest vegetation, grasses. And that's it really for this point. I'm putting in a bit there just to give it a bit more of a depth to the background, a lighter green, and then when that's dried I can then work on it and start bringing out the trunks and the trees. The knife or the applicator that I'm using is a scraper. It's something I buy from the discount centre, and you get 5 for £1, or you did. And I apply paint both with the scraper, with the silicone brush, and with a brush, depending on what sort of lines I want. And I don't just do it once. I'm not expecting it to work immediately. I build up colour and build up mark making until I'm happy with it. I think one of the interesting things as well of this is that I'm using colours that are warm and that have perhaps been used in the painting, and also I'm really responding to where the light would be. And yellow is a really lovely way of keeping things looking as if some delicious sunlight has landed on everything. I think this is possibly how photography really informs us. Our eyes have got used to how photographs work. For instance, when the sunshine is behind complex things or behind something, it can glow with a yellow or orange light. So that's the sort of thing I'm putting in there. And I'm using ochre and yellows and a bit of reds as well. And I'm using greys and blues, and I really like emerald green on this. Yeah, turn the picture around if you need to, if you need access, and if you need to vary your mark making so it's not all the same. There's a palette knife come in there. So I just build up the trunks and the twigs until I'm happy with them, which can take a bit of time. But the process happens very quickly. The paint dries quickly. If you make mistakes, you can either wipe it off or you can paint it out. The thing I'm also trying to do is to put the lighter colours in the centre of the picture and then go darker towards the edge, because I want light to come through the middle of the woods, and for those areas to have lovely bright blue bluebells in, and then towards the outer edge of the picture I'm going to go for a shaded woodland, and then I can bring in some really nice purples and some interesting dark blues to make the bluebells. And again, you're just using colour to describe light and perspective, and to draw your eyes through maybe the centre of the picture, and then to dwell in the lovely shadows in the corners of the painting. And here comes some lovely yellows in the tops of those branches, which are just going to catch the sunlight through the centre of the picture. And the texture and stuff, just leave it, don't try and smooth it out. The acrylics tend to dry flat in any case, or flatter, but I like all the texture. You know, I think it really adds to it. I like the way that you respond to it. Right, so I've got so far with it. I just want to take some of the, I want to blend in the yellow and the blue a bit here. So, and I also want to add the bluebells. So I scraped over colour before, scratched through it, and now I've got white, blues and a couple of pinky reds. I'm going to take, I've got some water, I'm just going to take off some of the, just going to blend this in a bit more. I felt it was just a bit too harsh, and also like a bit more white seems to, you know, be nice on it. So I'm just going to take a bit out there, and again just try and keep it in the negative spaces so you get some blue and some yellow still left over. It's sort of evident between the shapes. I just didn't like the very sharp delineation between the yellow and the blue, and I might have got a bit too much in there all the same, too much white. But I can just get a cloth and just lift it out a bit, just soften it all up a bit, because I do want some of the sort of just the blues showing through, and it does look nice with just sort of as if it appears like a little bit of a cloud or different colours in the sky. It doesn't all have to be one flat blue. In fact, that's looking nice, it just looks a bit more lively, and I didn't really have to fuss too much, and that's all I really want. And of course you can use the tonal qualities of the paint, of the colour, to produce a perspective. So the quieter the tones go in, the quieter the tones, the more it recedes, the more the perspective recedes. There's a nasty fingerprint up there, I should do that properly actually. And you just make suggestions of taking it away, and your eye fills in the rest. So yeah, I'm happy with that now. And now it's just a question of mixing your colours to make your bluebells. And again, you want it richer coming to the front, to the foreground, and more blues in the background. More faded blues as well. And also the sort of cold blues goes in the background, and the warm blues come to the foreground. And you can just find paintbrushes that work, that are going to put your bluebells in nicely. And I found this fan paintbrush works really well. So here we go, let's bring this up so you can see it. See me doing it. actually don't like, there's a slight sort of bend on that and I don't like it. I'd rather it was a flatter. So I've used this one. And then it's just a question of putting in your bluebells until you're happy with what you've got. Good fun part. And if you want to go over the trees a bit afterwards, you can do. You know, this is, I had smaller ones of these, but they seem to have disappeared, so I'm just bunging it on with this now. And I'm going to put a few leaves in the trees, but not many, because it's early doors in spring and not all the leaves are out. And I really love the way these have gone yellow and different colours over the background. And that's it really, just go through like that. And then once you come to the front, you can vary this, so instead of going horizontally, you go vertically, and you just put some larger bluebells in, going that way. And then you can even put in some stems and some leaves, but you don't need to do much. In fact, you know, the less you do, the better it is really. And it's quite nice as well if you think, where's the light coming from? And I'm going to have a lighter bit, say, coming through the middle, and then make it darker over to the edges where the bluebells are more on in the shade of the trees. Oh, I'm putting some purple in here because in the dark shady bits you can really go to some really beautiful colours. You know, take purples in there, and especially towards the front they can have, you know, a real warmth to them, and it'll bring your eyes to the front. Bluebells have these beautiful purples in them. So you can get some really lovely colours in this. And just vary your brushes, because otherwise your marks will become the same. And then lovely darks in the outer edges of the picture where the light's still hidden beneath the trees. Okay. So it's just another way of using acrylics, really lovely and thick, using speciality brushes to make the marks really easily, scraping through to reveal the colour of the boards underneath, the initial marks that you make, and enjoying their quick drying attributes to their best advantage. Makes it a simple way of painting. Right, and very last of all, I just mix a few greens and keep some yellow. and I'm just going to lightly touch on some leaves. So I just pick, I've got some on my palette, I just pick it up, not on my palette, on my knife, and I just touch it. So I just make some nice little leaves, and I'm not going to overdo this. These are just going to be really subtle and quiet. And towards the brighter spots where I want the light to be, I keep them yellow, and then the rest I'll make a bit more green. But I want to keep it fresh and clean, like it was on the beginning of summer. So really lovely, fresh green leaves, light green leaves that are full of youth. And that's it really. I'll just put a couple of yellow ones, show you what the yellow ones look like, because they look lovely against the blue as well. They, as I say, they look really clean and fresh. Okay, and that's it, just to give a suggestion of it, because I really love all the twigs. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed it, hope you got something out of it. Please remember to like and subscribe, and see you again. All the best.